Hola guapas y guapos! Welcome back to Global Roots. I am Daniela, your half enchilada, half baguette friend. Settle in as we embark on a new chapter of my journey, bridging the vibrant cultures of Mexico and France. Bon voyage les amis! Ready? Vámonos! Like pretty much any job search, my journey began with applications, then hoping for positive responses, and then kickstarting the selection process with interviews, presentations, maybe some personality tests, etc. Searching for a job in France was not completely different, or so I thought. First, I had to create a resume in both French and English because, to my surprise, many French people aren't great at speaking all the languages. And then there was the interview. English or Français? Or could I suggest Español? Of course not, silly me. One of GF's friends suggested I check out recruitment agencies. It was through this excellent advice that I found this pépite, as French would say. They had a job posting for a bid manager position requiring trilingual skills and experience with the American market. And guess what? Esta joyita mexicana filled all the requirements. However, given my previous experiences where jobs vanished once I mentioned needing a sponsor for a work visa, my clever boyfriend suggested keeping that tiny detail to myself until later in the process. It felt risky, but surprisingly, it worked. Despite their claims that the interviews would be held in English, they were all in Français. Looking back, they were probably testing my French and realizing it was better than their English. No bragging here, but in this case, it definitely was. I met the hiring agency owner, different managers, and even the CEO of the company. They seemed happy with my profile, and everything was moving in the right direction. So I felt comfortable enough to mention the work visa detail. But not just like that, of course. Between interviews and countless metro trips across Paris, I kept researching the work visa process. For those who've gone through this, you might think, silly girl, the company usually handles this. But I didn't know that. And to be honest, it felt like it was up to me to figure everything out. After visiting more prefectures and countless French administration websites, someone finally pointed me in the right direction. The OFII, Office Français de l'Immigration et de l'Intégration. So this translates into the French Office of Immigration and Integration. Yes, you might be wondering about this too. Well, if you know French a little bit. Integration, interesting, right? But well, we'll talk more about it later. There are several OFII bureaus in France, but the one in Paris is probably the biggest and the busiest one. After figuring out how to get there, I went to ask questions. The access was less complicated this time. No overnight waits. Phew! However, it was still tricky to navigate and find the right counter. But I managed to get there. And after a long conversation, I learned there were 3 major steps to get a work visa. First of all, find a sponsor. Second, put together a dossier with lots of paperwork and all non-French documents translated into French by a certified translator, bien sûr. And third and final, wait for a jury to evaluate it. The dossier seemed doable, but the company had to prove they couldn't find a French national for the job. They had to justify hiring a foreigner and more. I realized then that hiring in France prioritizes, well, French nationals. They come first, then Europeans, then non-Europeans, and, well, the rest of the world. You get the picture here. I fell in the last priority, or non-priority. Well, whatever. This was getting really complicated. In other words, esto va a estar muy cabrón. But of course, I played my poker face when telling the company that the process wasn't that complicated. Yeah, right. And that I would handle all the paperwork. No worries. Well, they decided to offer me the job. Yay! Victory! And, weirdly, reduce the salary a bit. But, well, I saw it as a 1 in a million opportunity and I took it. I could always get a salary raise later, right? At the time, the biggest focus was on the visa. I had to be incredibly diligent, gathering academic certificates, previous job salary sheets, recommendations, and more. It was a huge work, a huge dossier. The company provided several proofs too. It was a titanic work and quite expensive, to be honest. I was so proud when I had everything ready. But guess what? Remember, nothing is easy here. Or, well, I would say practical. It has to be complicated, right? I remember finally getting to the counter where someone was going to go through my dossier to verify it was complete. And guess what? Remembering this now makes me smile. But then I just wanted to cry and scream. Oh. The functionaire said, "Oh, désolé, madame, mais votre dossier n'est pas complet." What? What are you talking about? It's more than complete. What's going on? And then, out of nowhere, from a secret stash / huge pile of forms, he took a new form that I had never seen before and said, "You didn't fill out this form, madame?" I felt crushed, like the walls were closing in on me. I really wanted to cry and scream in frustration. I felt so small and helpless. I tried to explain that this wasn't mentioned before, but it was pointless. When dealing with French administration, you can't argue. You face a person with all the power who couldn't care less about your struggles. So I had to come back with a new form. This happened 2 more times before my dossier was finally accepted. I almost cried when I heard this. Dossier accepté. Putain, finalement! Oh, but wait. I was about to celebrate, silently in my head, of course, this huge achievement, but a hidden surprise was expecting me. Yeah, yet another one. I wasn't counting on what I was going to hear next. Wow. This was really the cherry on the top. Wait for it. The evaluation process was going to take not 1, not 2, but 3 months. Ta-da! Surprise! So yeah, if you remember well, I didn't have another 3 months to stay in France. So, de regreso a casa, I had to go back home. Also, if the decision was positive, my visa would be delivered at the French embassy in Mexico. So, I needed to buy another plane ticket and wait for the best. What can I tell you? I had mixed feelings. Happy my dossier was finally accepted, but stressed out about the waiting time. The company didn't know about the 3 months either, so I had to tell them. On the way back to our studio, I imagined many versions of how to break the news, trying to stay positive. Surprisingly, they were understanding and accepted the wait. So, the waiting phase began. I stayed a couple more weeks in Paris and then went back to Mexico. While the wait felt long, I tried to make the best of it. My family and friends sent positive vibes, which helped a lot. And GF also had to wait, which meant a lot for our relationship. At this point, I wonder how many others have gone through this experience. Back then, it often felt like I was the only one. But seeing others in the waiting rooms of French administration bureau reminded me that we were all in this together. We couldn't always share our stories because of language barriers, but we shared the smiles and kind looks, wishing each other good luck. This experience made me realize that many things are at stake. Couples and families brought together. Destinies changed at a turning point dictated by French administration. What do you think the answer was? Was it straightforward? Stay tuned to find out if my destiny was sealed with a yes or no from the French authorities, and what it meant for my life in France as an étrangère, right here on Global Roots.